This module includes instruction on the creation of a cam lobe in the Design Accelerator. This is Module B from the previous module where parts were created for use in the assembly area. So we're going to start with a new part, and the Create New File dialog box will appear. This time we're going to left click on Standard Inventor Assembly, and we'll left click on Create. And we'll give Inventor a minute to load up. I'm going to move this over just a little bit. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is to place the two components that we have for our assembly, and this should be familiar from Chapter 7. So I'm going to left click on Place, and then we'll left click on the cam case, and we'll left click on Open, and the cam case is hooked to the cursor, so I'm just going to left click one time. And I don't need an additional cam case, so I'm going to hit the escape key. Then we'll left click on the place icon again, and this time we'll left click on lifter 1, left click on open, left click one time, hit the escape key again. So now I'm going to move my cursor over here to the right. We'll left click on the free orbit icon, and we'll left click and just rotate all the parts up. And then we'll right click, left click on OK. And now this lifter needs to be inserted into this cylinder with this foot area facing downward. So I'm going to use the free rotate command to get it so it's pointing closer to the right direction, just in case Inventor inserts it upside down. So I'll move my cursor up to the free rotate icon, I'll left click one time, and the little free orbit symbol comes around that part. I'm just going to left click and drag and just get it so it's facing the right way. Then I'll right click, left click on OK. Now we're ready to constrain this lifter into the cylinder bore here. So I'm going to left click on Constrain, move my cursor over the cylinder. When the center line appears, I'm going to left click once. I'm going to move it inside the cylinder bore. When the center line appears, I'm going to left click once, and Inventor will pop that in there. Then I'm going to left click on Apply, and then I'll left click on Cancel. So if I left click and move the lifter in and out, we can see that it's constrained into this bore. Now you'll notice that the case is also moving, and that's because the case is not grounded. If you look over here in the part tree to the left, there's no little push pin in the tree next to the cam case. So because of that, I'm going to move my cursor over to the text that says cam case. I'm going to right click one time, and I'm going to move the cursor down here and left click on Grounded. And that will place a little push pin next to the text. Now when I move this cursor in and out, the cam case won't move. Then we'll left click in the workspace, and now we are ready to move into the Design Accelerator. And we do that by moving our cursor to the upper left portion of the screen, and we left click on the Design tab. And these are all the pre-designed parts that Inventor has, where users can type in parameters for those parts. And so we're going to left click on Disk Cam. If you left click on the arrow next to Disk Cam, you can see the different types of cams that Inventor contains. We're going to use a disk cam, so we'll left click on that one time. Oh, we have to save it. Alright, so we'll save it. And those are our dependents. We'll left click on OK. Okay, so this is the Disk Cam Component Generator dialog box. And the only thing that we're going to edit in here is we want a 2-inch roller radius. If that's not already entered, then enter a 2-inch roller radius. We're just going to take the defaults on everything else. So we'll left click on Calculate, and then we'll left click on OK. Then we'll left click on OK again, and Inventor will crank away, and hooked to our cursor is a cam lobe. So I'm going to left click one time, and then we can rotate things around to see. Yep, that is basically an egg-shaped camshaft lobe. This is a very handy command to have because the creation of a camshaft lobe from scratch is a very difficult procedure, very time-consuming. Now if you notice, our cam lobe does not have any kind of hole in it that we can use for an axis. It has a little axis part there, but we need to put a hole in it, and what is convenient about these parts can be edited just like a part that's been made from scratch. So we're going to move our cursor over the camshaft lobe and we're going to double click. And you'll notice that the rest of the assembly now becomes inactive and the camshaft lobe is active. Now we'll move our cursor to one of the surfaces here, the top surface. When it becomes highlighted, we're going to right click once or left click on Edit. Then we'll move our cursor over that surface again and we'll right click and left click on New Sketch. Now we want to put a hole right where the center of the grid is. And we need to put a little keyway in there with a straight edge so that we will have a way to drive the constraint for animation. That'll all make sense here in just a minute. So I'm going to left click on the circle command. I'm going to move my cursor right over that origin. Left click one time. Drag a circle out. And we'll right click. Left click on OK. And we'll left click on dimension. Left click on the circle itself. Drag that dimension out. We'll enter 0.25. And we'll right click, left click on OK. Then I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. We're going to create basically a keyway, and that's simply so we can have a flat surface. We're not going to really use it as a keyway. So I'm going to move my cursor over here to the line command, and we'll zoom in. And we just want to have something that looks like this. It doesn't even really have to be dimensioned. You can just make it look good. And then we'll trim off the inside portion. So we have something that looks like that. Then we're going to right click. We'll left click on OK. We'll wheel it out a little bit. And right click again. Finish 2D sketch. Then we'll left click on Extrude. And we'll move the entire model over. We'll left click on the Cut command. And we don't need it quite. We can probably do one, I guess. Then we'll left click on OK. And then if we rotate everything around, you'll be able to see we've got a flat surface that's in there posing as a keyway so that we have a way to drive the angle constraint. Then we'll right click, left click on OK. We'll move our cursor to the upper right portion of the screen and we'll left click on Return. And then that will get us out of the editing area for editing the cam lobe, and then we'll hit return again, and that gets us out of the edit area for creating a part. So now we're back into the assembly area. All the parts are active. You can tell by looking at the part tree over here, and our disk cam even shows up in the part tree. So now we are ready to constrain this disk cam to the cam case and constrain this lifter to the lobe face, I guess is a better name for it. So we'll move our cursor up to the constrain icon, left click one time, and I'm going to move my cursor inside that hole that we created. As soon as the center line appears, I'm going to left click once, and I'll move our cursor over this pin. Center line appears, left click once, and I'm going to hit left click on apply, and then I'll left click on cancel. And so now the camshaft is constrained on that center, but we have to have two more constraints. One is we have to constrain the lifter surface to it, and two, we have to constrain the lateral movement so it doesn't fall off of there. So I'm going to left click on the free orbit icon, and we'll rotate it around. I'm going to right click, left click on OK. Then we'll do a surface constraint with an offset distance. So we'll left click on constraint, and I'm going to left click on the inside surface of the cam lobe. We'll use the free orbit command to rotate the part around. We'll right click OK, and we'll left click inside here. The two parts will touch, and then we enter 0.125, and may need to be more than that. And let's take a look and see. We can always go back if that's not enough. It looks like that's just perfect. So the last constraint we have is we need to constrain the lifter surface to the camshaft lobe surface. So I like to just point it down here like this. We'll left click and rotate it around. Then we'll right click, left click on OK. Done. Okay, we'll move our cursor to the constraint icon. We'll left click one time, and this time we're going to left click on the tangent icon. This is so you can constrain a flat surface to a round surface, which is what we're doing. And the option we want is outside tangent. So I'm going to move my cursor to the outside edge of the cam lobe, and you'll see this arrow appear. That means to Inventor, this entire surface is one surface. So we'll left click once. Then I'm going to left click on the free orbit icon. We'll rotate it around. Right click one time. Guess we're going to have to hit done. And then we'll left click on the bottom of the lifter. Left click once. And Inventor will put those two parts together. Left click on apply. Left click on cancel. And now as you move the camshaft lobe, it raises and lowers the lifter. This is typically what you find in most automobiles. There'll be a series of these that open and close the valves for moving the gasoline in and the exhaust out of the engine. Now we want to animate this, so we're going to create an angle constraint, and that will create it'll create a constraint that will cause it to not be able to be moved with the cursor as shown, but we can always suppress that if we want to move it by hand. So we'll move the cursor up, move the lobe up so it's facing kind of upward. We'll left click out in the workspace, left click on constrain, and this time we'll left click on the angle constraint, and we'll left click on the directed angle, two of them. So we want to zoom in here, and we want that surface to be constrained to this surface. And so right now we have told Inventor we want this to be at 0 degrees. So now, because it has a constraint on it, it says keep those at 0 degrees, basically parallel, it won't allow movement. So we move our cursor over to the angle 1 constraint in the part tree, right click one time, and we'll left click on drive. And the drive dialog box will appear. And if we are to just use the defaults, you can see that it'll go start at 0 and end at 10. So let's push that and see what happens. Oh, that was exciting. Okay, so we'll back her up there, and let's enter in here 360, add a couple zeros, and then we'll left click on forward, and now it will revolve up here the positions however many times it goes around for 36,000, and then we'll left click on stop. Now if we want to speed that up a little bit, we'll drop this arrow down. Right now it's plugging in 1 degree increments. We can tell it we want 10, and we want start and start. We'll collapse this, then we'll hit drive constraint again. And now it runs at a pretty reasonable rate. So now if we want to create an AVI file out of this, we'll stop it, rewind it back, we hit play or forward, and then immediately we can hit record. We can back her up here, we'll just hit record right from the beginning. This is where it's going to place it. I'll just stick mine, pretty much anywhere here. So I'm going to save mine there, and then we'll left click on OK, and then we'll hit forward, and once it starts to move, the drive angle dialog box will minimize and it will go almost off of your screen. It's out of the recording area, but you will see it down at the very bottom, and you can just let it run for a little while, and all it's doing is recording. And as soon as you're think it's recorded enough, I let it run about 30 seconds, then I just move my cursor down and close the drive angle dialog box. And so now if you go to where you've saved the file, here is constraint 1, now I just took the default, and we'll double click on that, and this is in VLC, and I'm not sure why it cut it off there, but anyway, there is the .wmv Windows Media video file for the viewing of this. And basically this was done so that somebody that doesn't have Inventor won't have to purchase Inventor just to check out what an assembly looks like if it has any kind of animation. And that concludes this module on use of the Design Accelerator.